Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Painted in Color podcast. I'm co-host Lauren Brown, joined by co-host Mia Araujo and Eric Wilkerson. And today we are talking about the future of art. We started this episode in the middle of a conversation, so we're just going to drop y'all right in and enjoy. There's been so much stuff that I've been seeing. So there's an Afrofuturism group that I follow on Facebook that keeps sharing arts of these, quite frankly, beautiful, gods and goddesses, like these African gods in all these like different poses and like body types that you don't really get to see in fantasy, with skin colors that you don't get to see in fantasy, but it's all AI art, and everybody's like so excited about it. And I'm like, part of me is enabling, like, it's like, okay, people are enabled to be able to see something that they really haven't gotten to see that much before, but it's AI art at the same time. And like everybody's buying into it and they don't know that it's not real art. And it's really like, oh my God, it's so frustrating. So I'm just like, what do we do? Like, how do we, I don't know,
Yeah.
discern between the two?
Yeah. And there is that huge debate. It's like whether it's art or not. And it's like, I'm not, like Carla has said, I'm not interested in that argument, whether it's art or not. I'm more interested in the fact that who is it stealing from? It's like,
Exactly.
because it's basically stealing from the labor of all of us who have ever trained ourselves and been trained for years to do this. She explains it way better than I ever could, so I'm not going to get into that debate here. But yeah, I think that's the part that rubs me the wrong way, that it's like everyone's so excited about the instant gratification of getting to see the images they've been wanting to see, but it's just like, at what cost?
Yeah, no, but like even the thing is though, is that like I think that that is the main part of the debate for me, is the fact that it is stealing art from
Mhm.
a lifetime of a lot of artists' work.
Yeah.
And so like inherently it's something that becomes unethical because you are taking something from someone else without their consent.
And there's,
And
sorry,
yeah,
no, keep going.
no, but no, that's like for me, that's full stop. But go on.
No, there was an artist I remember on Twitter the other night that was like, literally posted a comment somebody left for them, and the person was saying, "I love your art so much that I typed it in as a prompt on Midjourney and made some art based on it. Hope you're okay with that." And I guess I don't understand that level of thinking, that it's like, I hope that you can see I'm trying to flatter you. People say that when they're trying to rip off somebody's art. Somebody in the comments is inevitably going to say, "Oh, the highest form of flattery is imitation," or some crap like that. But this is outright theft and without someone's
Yeah.
consent, and that's not okay.
Yeah. I
And
feel like it's, yeah. No, go on, Mia.
no, I guess it's just more the idea that there's a lot of people out there that don't understand what consent and like ownership of imagery is, because everything out there has been free for so long, especially imagery, right? Stuff that,
Yeah.
but even music, stuff that people have grown up feeling like, I am entitled to this for free and I shouldn't have to pay anyone for it.
Yeah.
All of that is kind of converging with this, where a lot of people don't understand how wrong it is or how unethical it is to take something from someone or to train an AI on someone's art without their consent. So, anyway, that was all I was trying to say.
It was
Yeah.
exhausting enough to have to learn to find your own voice, have to learn how to, well, first, how to learn how to paint or draw, how to figure out what field of art to go into, find your own voice, build your website, create a presence, let people around the world know who you are and that you're available and alive and ready to do this art. And now to have to compete with somebody that has no artistic ability whatsoever, but they just can just type words and use your name and reproduce results that took you years to master in seconds. I find that really disturbing, and it's getting better.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about that, a few artists that have found themselves being used as keywords, or finding their seeing their style reproduced without their consent. And like, who do you talk to about that? There's no one. Like, if you have a problem with Twitter, you know who to hashtag, right? Who the,
Well,
well, for now, but who's there? It's just like a faceless, nameless, faceless entity behind, behind these AI programs. Like, you can threaten to sue, but who?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's getting that notification?
yes, the
Even
person who
when
reads it.
even when they get even when artists say, "Hey, I didn't give you permission to use my stuff as a prompt,
Yeah.
or to use my artwork as a thumbnail image on a, here's how to paint or here's how to do realistic art prompts." Like, uh, instead of them just saying, "Oh, sorry, we're still trying to learn how to do this thing or communicate with the artist or the community," they just replaced the thumbnail image. Like, so instead of it being some contemporary sci-fi fantasy illustrator, they swap them out with Rembrandt. You're like, well, Rembrandt can't complain.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like that's it. I know we've talked about AI before, but we thought it was going to be a fad.
Yeah, it's already
And
changed so quickly since that conversation.
right. And I just feel like now we're competing against we're competing against people with no artistic skill whatsoever. No, I just don't know. I don't know where that's gonna end, if, in addition to trying my best to create works that, like, you find your voice, you figure out what it is you want to do with your art for the rest of your life, and then somebody else comes along and goes, "Hey, that's some nice work."
Yeah.
Mine now.
It's mine now.
Yeah.
Let me produce your entire catalog of work in about an hour.
Yeah, like how do they not understand that doesn't, like, I don't understand what satisfaction that gives them. Like there was an AI thing for voices too, that you could apparently sing a song into this thing and it'll turn your voice. And like, have you ever wanted to sing with Dolly Parton's voice? Now you can. And I was thinking about that, like how weird that feels. And it's just like, she has a really unique voice. There's only one Dolly Parton. What
Yeah.
satisfaction does it give you to listen to somebody, if anyone can sound like her? It's like, it just, I don't know what the appeal of that is, like aside from just like 5 minutes of amusement.
I
I have
think
no problem with seeing illustrators or concept artists that are, pushing 70. They're up in age, and they don't have the eyesight or the hand or the technical ability to sit there, or it's not comfortable for them to sit there for hours like they used to and just be painting this stuff, to just put their name into a prompt and say art of, I've been doing it for 40 years.
part of myself.
My stuff's out there, art of myself, and reproduce results that are damn near, exactly what I would have done, and just pepper it with some Photoshop and call it a day. I have no problem with that. Right. But it's everybody else that is like, "Hey, that's some nice work you got there. Mind if I take that off
Mind
your
if
hands
I
real quick?"
make it mine and take credit for
Mine.
it?
Right. Right. And there's the thing that I think bothers me most of all. It's not even the the way the app is being used. It's that the sense of entitlement around it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I made that.
Oh.
No, you didn't.
No, you really didn't. You put
You
words in a generator and you press the button and it made the thing for you based off of other people's work.
Yeah,
right.
That's
And I
exactly what
thought,
has happened
it's an art
like,
director at best, but
at
right.
best. And not even that, because I'm an art director. No. Not
but
even
still,
that.
you claim ownership of people that you're acting with over my art.
Nope.
You
If
can
anything
paint
is
it.
on my if anything I art directed is on my website, I say credit as art director, done by actual person.
Right.
It wasn't me, fam. But I think too that like there's some arguments that people try to make online where they say, "Oh, well, artists have been copying other artists for such a long time. You can't really complain about this because it's just another form of that." It's really not, because you're taking the experience of another human being and how they interpret it through their eyes, which, yeah, like is so unethical in a way, but it's not nearly the same thing as like putting it in a generator and pressing buttons, because the person who has to copy the style with skill that's good enough to be passable still takes skill to do. It's
And
still
time.
effort and time. And some people have that entitlement still, where they're just like, hey, this is my art, and it's like, it's really not. Like, nice try, but there were still hours involved in trying to get that. And so I'm not nearly as like upset about that kind of thing than people directly trying to take other people's styles through a generator and then turning them out through code, and here's an image that looks just like this person's style, or until you get closer and see that their hands have like 7 fingers on it. But I just think that a lot of people don't really have the respect for art that that they should. Like, I think that would stop them from doing things like this, because the society doesn't really teach us to have respect around art. It doesn't, like, people see art as a career, as something that is childish and frivolous, which is why nobody wants to pay people what they're worth, and which is why people don't really take us seriously. And this is just another example of this manifestation of the disrespect around art and artist careers, and how much effort that it takes to create what we create, because this is a legitimate skill. It is something that is trained over the course of years. If any normal, normie, if any normal person tries to do art from scratch, they will see how difficult it actually is to do. And if they try to dedicate time to it, they'll be like, oh, this is way harder than it actually seems. But because nobody really takes the time and effort to understand what goes into it, and the way that art is, perpetuated by the media, and like the way the conversation is around art, starving artists, weird artists, et cetera, et cetera, there's not really that kind of regard for it. And therefore, I think that's what allowed AI art to really, take hold and thrive. And it's very hard to fight against it, because we need it to be taken seriously in the first place to even fight against it. And I think that's the core of the problem right there.
Yeah. And also, I think that like there have been artists that have tried to ape each other's styles and make a living off of that, or straight up art theft, right? Like plagiarists and stuff like that. And there's like checks, I guess, like among other artists or among experts, in terms of, no, this is not okay. This is too close for comfort. But we have, like, we either check each other or check ourselves in terms of not fully copying somebody else's work. But the AI doesn't have that. It would be so different if a human being could reproduce an entire other artist's like body of work within seconds. Keep churning out other people's styles, which is the way the AI does it. And I think that's the piece that is different, that you can't compare it to humans, no matter how similar that might be to somebody, to a lay person that's like, you all look at other people's work, like, therefore, how is this any different? I do think that speed at which it does it, though, is a big difference. The fact that you could just, like I said, churn out somebody else's body of work, churn out 20 or 100 artists' body of work within minutes is pretty, it's like a different set of circumstances. We can't just judge it the same way we've been judging all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the amount of people who do the art theft and ape other people's styles like blatantly is still the bare minimum of artists. It's not that many people doing it, whereas AI art is like not just artists doing this. We're outside of the art community with AI art, which I think is a big problem, because there is nobody around to police people who are doing this. Like, there's no one around to say, hey, this is AI art, please admit that this is AI art, that you're not actually an artist and you didn't really do any work to create this prompt or this imagery. They're marketing it to people who don't understand art either, and who can't recognize AI art. So there's no one to check them and be like, hey, maybe say this, or at least like disclaim it before you share this without saying anything. There's no one around to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, they get so defensive if you say you have to admit that this is AI. Oh, this is AI art. Like, I worked hard on this. Like, come on.
You worked an hour tops on this.
Yeah. So defensive.
So defensive. And like we were saying too, that it's like digital artists don't hide that they're painting digitally so that people will think they're painting traditionally. They are, like, everyone is honest about their medium. So why is this any different? If there's nothing to be ashamed about with AI art, why don't they just admit that they've used it?
Because there is something to be ashamed about it. It's the art theft. So that's why they're not admitting it.
Right.
And it's just like, I know that people, like I want to be able to have a nuanced conversation about this, but there's just no world where, aside from the one that Eric had talked about, where somebody is using their own art as a prompt, or there's open source art that has been given to the engine that the artist has allowed. That's the only thing. That's the only way it would be made ethical, is that if there was a library, just like stock photos of art, that's like, okay, here, this can be used as a generator. This is fine with me as an artist. I don't really care about ownership. Cool, fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But people just putting their things online to share it with other people, their journey, their story, their point of view, to be manufactured and repurposed and processed into a machine is just, that's not right. I can't see anything right about that.
And it's not just art either, right? It's like all of us that have ever put up personal photos like on social media or whatever it is, like any of that could be could wind up in this stuff, Like
Yeah.
people are using AI to recreate really convincing looking photographs from, I've seen some that look like from the 60s or the 70s. And there is kind of the argument too that it's like, well, you signed away all your rights when you join these social media platforms, so you're using them for free and you kind of have to play by their rules. But we didn't sign up for this though. Like,
no one signed up for this, and it's a trash excuse as well. It's just like, again, another justification for art to be exploited, which people have been making for a long time. But I don't like to talk about problems without talking about solutions. So what do we do about it? Like, what can an artist do in this day and age about this?
I keep hearing the words class action lawsuit being thrown around. There has to be enough people with a loud enough voice, with enough of a social media presence to be able to say, hey, this isn't cool. And actually, actually the artwork that you have sampled doesn't even legally belong to me. It belongs to Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's been merged into something, and I can clearly recognize where you got it from.
Mm-hmm.
So who do we sue?
Yeah.
Whoever created
That's going to happen.
That
I feel like
yeah,
at this point,
I think it has to
happen.
I think especially once big, I think it probably is most likely going to take big companies to be able to see that the work that they have done is being stolen and repurposed. And I think that once there is a big enough wave where their art is being stolen in some way or another, they might stand up and take action. The fear too that I have is that they just take AI art and use it for their production pipelines en masse. I hope that doesn't happen, but I hope that companies also stand up and realize and fight for defense of the artists, ones that actually value the talent. I mean, and they should, because they see how much effort it takes to make these movies and to make these games and to make everything that they've made, and how much cannot be done without a human brain behind it, because ultimately a lot of problems get solved with actual thought process, with collaboration, with teamwork, and you're not quite going to get the result that you're looking for with just pure AI art if you're going to do something as complex as a movie or a game or a TV show or anything. You're really just not. I think same goes for script writing, same goes for music. Like, it's just not going to be the same result. Another thing that I think about a lot is the journey of an artist and the story behind why we create what we create. I think that while we wait for this class action lawsuit to take place, which I hope happens, I think that there is a lot of value in sharing who you are, and at least like giving a little bit of your story or your process to your audience, just to let them know, like, hey, like, we might have to like maybe over index in it, which, I know a lot of people don't want to do. I don't really want to do it, but it's forced our hand, so to speak, to really get our followers invested in our story and why we're making what we make, and valuing the fact that this is coming from a human being, because you can't really manufacture that. You can't manufacture a real lived experience through a machine. You just can't. And so I think that's going to be starting to get more and more important, is you're not just the art, you're also the person behind it.
Yeah,
At
I
least that's
was.
one way.
I know we before we started recording, I was saying um at some point, and I think I'm going to start doing this for future pieces once they've become public, when I can publicly release them, is just say this is 100% handmade, human made.
Human
No
made.
no AI was used in the production of this illustration, you know, which is weird to have to say. I
Yeah.
didn't roll out of bed and, last year and think one day I'm going to have to tell people that a robot didn't make this.
Yeah, in what
No.
future did we expect that to happen?
Future
Right.
generations will
Everyone
see.
expected this would be the last thing that AI could do was would to be art. And that's the other thing too. It's like people that are thinking this is just an artist problem. It's like if it can get this done this early and this quickly, then it's going to come for a lot of people's jobs. So it's in a lot of people's interest to get invested in this. But
Absolutely.
but I think to me too, it's like I think we've all been sort of heading this way, unfortunately, but it's just like really bad literacy in terms of checking your sources for it's just how people are on social media, right? We all just see something, immediately want to share it, but don't stop to check whether it's real or not, for instance. And we're having to do that now with images, where it used to be that you could immediately tell that's a photo, that's a painting. And now that's going to become a lot more blurred. And so I guess I would just, in terms of moving forward, just encourage people to before like outright sharing something, if they do want to support human artists more, is to stop and check your sources. And even if you think this could have been painted by somebody, look up that artist and see if they have a website, see if they have any work that has been made before 2022 in that same style, I don't know, that's what I've started doing just to make sure that I'm actually supporting humans. And the reason why that's so important to me is because, like you said, Lauren, for me it's not just about the image. Like images are, striking images do kind of stop me and make me pay attention, but what makes me really connect to a piece is the person that made it, is the human being and their story. And as much as I know about them and about why they made that and who they are, those are my favorite artists, is the ones who I connect with the most about why they made that image and that sort of thing. And so for a lot of people that have been using that argument where it's like it's just a great image, who cares how it was made? I care how it was made. That is one of my core values, is that is part of it for me. So if that's part of it for you too, I think it is just really good to get in the habit of being more visually literate, if that makes sense, in terms of if you're not an artist yourself, in terms of just trying to understand how things were made that you're looking at, and make sure that you're supporting the people that are actually doing this stuff.
For people who are in a hurry, how best do you identify AI art so that you don't just click and share immediately? Like, what are the key things that y'all look for? Because I have things that I look for. I'm just curious if you have any other tells that you know about.
Is it hands for you?
Well, hands is a big thing. I think that's like the most obvious
Yeah.
thing for sure, because AI art fortunately just cannot get hands right at all. But what else? For me, there's other tells.
Um,
I mean, the eyes too.
it's a little too busy. Like, especially, well, what's been throwing me off is the historical, um, like candid photos from concerts and stuff like that. I'm like, this looks like a really cool event. And then you scroll down and it goes, oh, none of this exists.
Yeah.
But the sci-fi stuff, the anime, like, and I thought earlier this year, well, they're really just reproducing the realism and they're copying the abstract, going more surreal with it. But even children's book illustrators are not immune to this.
Yeah.
I've watched a couple of children's book illustrators go in there and just deep dive and mimic stuff, and you go, oh, okay, well, gee, that wouldn't take much to uh, just clean up the hands. And if the eyes on your little children's book AI illustration are weird, nobody's even going to question it. They're going to be like, wow, it looks like a kid drew it. Done. So I don't know, yeah, hands are definitely a thing, but if some of the stuff just looks so busy, there's so much detail in it. You just go, and not even like cohesive details. It's just artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
You go, okay, well, I'm sure they'll have that cleaned up by next month. So,
Yeah.
but it is getting harder and harder. This is an obscure reference, but do you guys ever see the John Carpenter film They Live,
They live. I have
where
I seen that?
is like everybody is an alien or something like that, but there was like the two guys like Roddy Piper's in it, and they have glasses on that let them see the aliens for what they truly are.
No.
Kind of, I don't know. I don't know. It's obscure, but I was just thinking like at some point we're gonna get there where we're not gonna be able to tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna fix up all of the tells,
Yeah.
and then it's really, your word against whoever's,
Yeah.
whether they painted it or created it in ZBrush or typed for 5 minutes. There's going to be no fancy shades that you can put on that's going to like show that image as like zeros and ones or something like that. you know, there's
Yeah.
going to be no tell.
The only tell will be if they go to a live event and they suddenly can't paint. So
Yeah, but if they're
I
only
would
selling
go to
prints,
that.
yeah, if they're only selling prints, then you can't tell that. I think there's already been somebody who tried to go to a convention selling a wall full of AI art. But I think that actually this convention they had like people to generate images with their software, like a bunch of like anime girls or whatever. And they were selling them at $5 a pop or whatever. Um and a bunch of people are calling the convention out, but I don't know if the convention actually took any action against this person.
one of
Um,
them that was an anime convention did say that they wouldn't accept AI art, but to your point earlier, how do they know? Like a lot of people think I can just tell what is AI art, but you really have to
Right.
do your research on the artists themselves submitting and see if they're actually an artist or not.
yeah, you do have to deep dive. I think that like, yeah, as AI art is right now, they're not as good as emulating the cleaner styles. Like my style, they can't get yet, but because I've already tried, and it's definitely like way off. But I think that to Eric's point too, it is eventually going to be good enough to the point where it can do styles like that. So I think there's always going to be some kind of tell though, but it's going to be harder and harder to recognize that. But if you cannot reproduce those results, like what do? I feel like it might, like if we can't get this lawsuit going and if we don't really stop this right now, like we're going to have to change our process of how we approach a lot of these things. The
Yeah.
jury process is probably going to have to change. Like we might have to start showing process photos or process images now. How
Hmm.
did you get to this piece? How did you make it? Show me sketches and finals. Which I don't personally mind doing at all. I'm like, I have the sketches, I've made this piece, but you have to document the process now
Yeah.
and prove that it's real. Um, that might be a defense mechanism that some conventions take up or some juries take up. Uh, you
Yeah.
know, yeah, it's going to change the landscape, I think, if we don't get a handle on it. Um, and I think what we have to do as artists is be one step ahead of this thing and be adaptable and be able to keep our unique voices while something is trying to steal our unique voices. Because I'm an optimist by nature, but it is very hard to be optimistic when everything is trying to work against us right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't just have AI art to contend with. Like we were earlier this year getting our art stolen through NFTs. I got like 3 pieces like posted on OpenSea or whatever that thing was. Fortunately, DeviantArt had like let me know, but it was only because I had a core membership that I wasn't even notified that this happened. So for all the things that were not posted on DeviantArt, how many pieces I gotten stolen. But fortunately, NFTs seem to be more of a bit of a fad than AI art. So like, there's that. But now the social media game is starting to change too,
Yeah.
because Twitter is trying to implode right now. I feel like by the time this episode even airs, things are going to change. and like either Twitter will be gone or Twitter will keep trucking along, or some weird new development is happening. I don't know.
Right.
But there's a lot to contend with right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
I just want MySpace back. That's all.
MySpace, Eric?
I had a good thing going with MySpace. I had
Did
my
you?
Depeche Mode little playlist. I had my top 8. So everybody knew what time it was when they came to my page. Like, no, you are no longer in my top 8. You're just some dude I know. Right? Like, if I got mad at some girl, just move her out of the list. Right?
Hilarious.
It was very
Right?
curated, very small.
Yes. But now, I gotta, it's Instagram and Facebook are enough. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. Like, now I gotta jump on Mastodon, and nah. Like,
Learning
just
how to use Twitter was hard enough.
Yeah. I think
I
the
still
only
don't
consolation
understand Twitter.
you didn't miss much, Eric. You really didn't. I think my only consolation about all of the social media stuff is when I think about it, I didn't join Facebook when it first started, and I didn't join Instagram when it first did either, or Twitter. And I guess I'm just like waiting it out right now because I am exhausted, and I'm just like, I have too much going on right now. I don't have the bandwidth to start over. And so for people who have more energy, they can go onto these platforms. Remember Vero? Like, that shit is gone. Like, nobody's on there anymore.
What is Vero? I don't even know what that is,
That's
Mia.
right.
Exactly.
No idea what that is.
That's right. That was okay. So that was 2020.
2020.
I don't know why, but all of a sudden people were like, "Yeah, here's my Vero." I'm like, "Oh shit, what happened?"
I know
Do I
what it
need a
was.
Vero?
It was when
What?
Instagram's algorithm changed. It was like the first really bad algorithm change where things were no longer chronological and it was all like super ad based and stuff for the first time. And
When it
people,
Okay.
TikTok,
and
or was
that
it before
was,
TikTok?
I think it might have been around the time TikTok was starting, and that's probably why TikTok took off actually, and Vero didn't. But it was advertising itself as a chronological version of Instagram. My point is that because you don't even know what that name is, Lauren, that's kind of why I don't want to, invest too much right now in these other ones, because we don't know which one's going to stick around in even 2 years.
Yeah.
That's so funny because I was thinking the exact same thing. I just couldn't remember the name of the app. And I'm like, yeah, this just sounds like 2020 all over again.
Yeah.
But now there's more options.
Yeah.
Like, whenever one of these, and it's so quick how fast they were able to throw up a whole social media site. Like, were you just sitting on this waiting for Twitter to, like, or did somebody just scramble and like, oh crap, we got to put something together? I don't know.
This going. Yeah, I think Hive, that one was started by previous Twitter employees. But the problem with that is that Twitter had thousands of employees, and like this was like a really small startup, so there's like a lot of glitches and stuff like that. And just I feel like wherever the celebrities go, people are going to follow. So like I'm kind of like watching to see like where's the celebrities going to go, because like I think that's the app that people like take seriously enough for mass.
Well, Zack Snyder was on Vero. He was promoting it like crazy. He was like showing teaser images from Justice League on Vero, trying to get people over there. And that didn't pan out.
Well, it has to be more than one celebrity, I think. It's like
Oh,
it's got to
yeah.
be the crew of celebrity, because like every celebrity is like on Twitter. Like almost every single one is on Twitter or Instagram. Yeah, so like there's places to like follow your favorite person, which is not something I really care about, but like a lot of people do. And I think that's why Twitter became so popular in the first place, because you got to hear personal takes from celebs that you thought were previously untouchable.
Yeah.
And I mean, Twitter, as much of a hell site as Twitter is, it really has done a lot for the artist community, especially minority artists and underrepresented artists. It did a lot for me. Like it got me jobs, like literally jobs, and opportunities that I would not have gotten anywhere else. No other social media would have picked me up like Twitter did. And it was such a powerful tool, even though it was so problematic for so many different reasons. But I think any social media like that can be abused. But for the good that it did, I feel like it's always the marginalized artists that are going to get the worst end of the stick every single time.
Yeah.
And of course, it's at the whim of some dude, some jerk who is having an ego trip. And it's like, again, like we have to find a way to adjust to this. Like we have to find a way to, okay, we have a whole career on Twitter. Now we have to reestablish our career somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I've been thinking a lot about, how you diversify that. It's like, I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I don't have to rely on social media for my success, but it's so difficult for a lot of artists who were relying on that as a way of networking, a way of getting clients, getting their work out there, interfacing with big companies like Critical Role and, and this, big studio art, like all these things that was a resource that they had to use. And now, it may not be a thing in a few months.
Yeah.
I know Twitter is not going to die overnight. There's a lot of things that need to happen before Twitter actually dies, but it's starting to crumble unless something is done. And again, I don't like to talk about problems without talking about solutions. So how can an artist like work with this social media crisis that we have right now? Because Instagram has become a cesspool, because now you have to make a video all the time. Some artists are doing well on TikTok, but I don't want to. And I'm just like, what else do we do? Like, why do we have to learn so many different skills just to survive as an artist?
I mean,
so many skills.
Blender, ZBrush, draw, paint, work in Photoshop.
Be a flexible
what is it? What is the other one that people use when they want to abandon Photoshop?
Oh,
Clip Studio Paint.
Procreate.
You got to know how to like move your hips and shake and like edit video and
market,
no one.
Sales,
with your brushes,
advertising,
sales, ad promotions, marketing manager. You have to art direct these photo shoots too to make them palatable for everybody.
I had an illustrator friend of mine at IlluxCon give me like a master class in how to use Reels in Instagram to gain followers and attention. And I mean, he's got a whole gimmick. He's like wears a bow tie and like, comes off really professional, speaks right into the camera, and then goes into this whole editing thing where he's like clipping, showing you all these quick cuts. And I'm like, I just want to paint, man.
Yeah.
Like, while he's telling me this, I'm getting all of it. I understand it. And he's showing me these videos. And he's like, look at all this engagement. It's like 20,000 views, like 20,000 eyeballs in just this day alone. I'm like, oh my God. I just want to paint.
Someone might as well tell me that the way to get views is to like walk into the street naked. Like I would not do that. You know what I mean? Like that's how I feel when people tell me this stuff. Like this is how you get all these views. Do this thing that you're so incredibly uncomfortable doing. It's like, and like Mike said last week, I just don't want to do it. Like when they say this is the only way, then I'm just not going to do it. And I know that's stubborn, but it's just not me.
It also really isn't the only way. I think that like people need to discover their ways of like what it is like to get traction, but it's hard because there's not much of a precedent for how much we have to game the system in order to get likes. Like there's different ways people do it, but if you're trying to be original in the way that you would do it, you have to figure that out for yourself. And I've been trying to figure it out. And I just don't produce enough content fast enough to really game the system like that to get millions of followers or whatever. And quite frankly, I don't really want millions of followers, but I want enough of a following to be able to fall back on social media if I have to. But it's not easy. And I think that AI art and the algorithm and stuff and all the social media stuff has also come at kind of the worst time, because what we were saying before was that like you have to figure out how to do all these things. In no way do we necessarily have to do all these things by ourselves. We have a community of artists to lean on and a wealth of people who know how to do this stuff already. And I think that if we're really here to help each other, we don't necessarily have to gate that content behind paywalls and behind, algorithms or subscriptions or anything. We can just tell each other how to do it. And there's people out there who are telling each other how to do it, because like I know that obviously this career is a kind of a competition, but it really doesn't have to be. So I
Yeah.
think that we are stronger together as a community. We were talking about this before with the show, even like I would never have been able to make the show without y'all. Like I would never have been able to do something like this alone, but we came together as a community and we did it. I think that we are approaching a point where it's going to be really, really hard for us if we don't start getting angry and we don't start taking action. Um, and I think that this stuff is going to start to force our hands. Now, the reason why I said the timing is like really off for this is because I think a lot of people have like gotten content with just complaining about the thing without having to fix it, because social media kind of facilitates that mentality where you can just talk about the thing but not really do anything about it. Sure, raise awareness, but also do something about it.
Yeah.
If you need to adjust your method, maybe ask advice of people who you admire who are doing it. Maybe band together and use your friends as a way to get the message out there or promote each other. Or, hey, I need help with packing these Etsy orders this weekend. Hey, I need help with how do you do so well in marketing social media? How do you do that? We have to start really utilizing the people who are around us. I think that's something the music industry has gotten better about. Like it's always kind of been pretty good about is like collaboration and talking to other people and banding together. I think the artists haven't really been as good about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Part of it might be the nature of our career in the first place, but also it's a trained skill that you have to learn. And like art doesn't require us to be out in the world to do that, but it's a skill that we really need to start utilizing, because I've always found that things are stronger when you utilize your system.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
it's
a
a
great
skill that
point.
I'm still learning.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's it. What were you
it's a
gonna say?
lot. That's, I mean, a lot of us are barely just getting by as is without having to worry about all the extra stuff to like fight against. And you know what I'm saying. It's just it's a lot.
Of course it is.
It's oh man. But
I mean, it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna keep being a lot, is the thing that I'm saying. Like this ain't
yeah,
gonna stop. It's just getting worse.
yeah.
So if we don't learn how to adapt to it, it's just gonna continue to be a lot. But I think that using the people who you trust and care about, and people who care about this community thriving and surviving, we need to show up and start helping.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think you're onto something with that because it's like we come together to learn skills like how to paint and draw. We go to workshops, we take classes and stuff, and people are very giving with their information, but for some reason when it comes to like breaking through and building a career and an audience and stuff like that, there isn't as much about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And even just what you're saying about cross promotion, I think that is kind of the future in the sense that I think why it feels like we have to start all over is because we think about me, like this tiny island myself has to start all over and regrow in this new atmosphere instead of thinking like all of us together could build something, right? And I mean, it could just be more like about all of us instead of each of us individually, like my career and my profit or whatever. And I've never really responded to that myself. And I think that's why it's taken me so long to figure out how to do this, is because it does feel like we're going about it the wrong way, doing it individually. So I really respond to what you're saying.
I mean, honestly, I think soon we will have no choice but to start having to change up the method.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, like I think it's kind of going to have to force our hand into it.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, ways to cultivate respect for the process and the struggle of what it takes to make art is really the point that I'm getting at. Because I think if the full culture, like the zeitgeist, had an understanding of how difficult it is to be an artist, then maybe we wouldn't keep getting the short straw so much
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah. I think that's it right there. It's that when your culture does not appreciate what you do, it doesn't value what you do, it doesn't pay you for what you do,
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, rolling that rock up the hill over and over again. And it doesn't matter how much you believe in it if the rest of your society doesn't. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of that is like, how do you reach them?
Yeah. Again, I think it's really about that community aspect too. It's like finding those resources and finding those connections.
Mhm.
I found a lot of really, really good knowledge by someone I met who I worked with. I'm like, hey, like, they said that they know some person. I'm like, hey, like, you said you know this person, like tell me more about them. And they're usually like, I'll introduce you. And I'll end up having a conversation with a new person that I would not have had that connection with before,
Yeah.
and learn something new. And then maybe a collaboration can happen in the future, or maybe I can help them with advice, and like give back. I like trades so much more than money, because it's so much more valuable than money.
Yeah.
And if people are strapped for cash, people can't get the resources they need. Well, we have a skill, don't we?
Yeah.
Do people need that skill? Maybe we can, we can trade with each other too. Like
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to utilize the community. And I think we haven't really thought about enough about what it takes to do that, and like what it looks like. It doesn't have to be your full-time job to always tap into that. But I think, again, like I said before, it's a skill that needs to be learned and cultivated and
Yeah.
used to our advantage to grow and be better as a community and as an individual.
Definitely. I do think mutual aid is the future though. Like we can't on our own go up against these giant forces that are trying to stop us from creating entirely. And
Yeah.
I think definitely changing that mindset in terms of, do we all want this to be valued? Like we can't do that on the strength of one person alone, or just a bunch of individual islands. Like I really do think that this is a time for people to really start thinking about what they value about art. And I guess for anyone who's younger and listening to this and maybe hasn't, is at the beginning of their career, I do think about students in that position a lot, because I'm overwhelmed now. We're all overwhelmed now, but we at least know what our styles are. We have, at least a decade worth of practice under our belts and stuff like that. And so we can fall back on those things in ways that people just starting out can't. And I just feel like if it's valuable to you to learn these skills and to make art yourself, I think as daunting as that might seem, and as long as that path might seem, I guarantee that it will be worth it to you. But it just might mean that in the future you might just have to do things differently than we've all had to do it. And that's always been the case, right? We've had to go about our careers differently than people that were our mentors and stuff like that. So that hasn't changed. But I think that somebody in one of these AI talks somewhere has kind of said that just because AI can make art doesn't mean I don't have to, like I
Yeah.
still want to make it, so I'm not going to let something take that away from me. So if that matters to you so much, then do it, then go after it. It's still valid. And I think just for me, it's never been, art hasn't been for me about doing what's cutting edge or doing whatever is the future. It's just been about whatever my expression is, like my most authentic expression is. And that can't be taken away from you by something. Even if it's eclipsed and no one will ever see it, you can still make it and it can still have meaning for you. I hope people will see it, but I'm just saying, like, it should still have value even if it doesn't get you there. At least for me, that's been the guiding light through all of this year.
I think somebody's passion on display is probably one of the most inspiring things that anybody can see.
Oh, for sure.
And I think as long as we keep that going and we don't get defeated by these things trying to take the originality away, I think we'll be okay. Even
Yeah.
though it's going to be harder, but if we don't let it stop us doing what we're doing and we create despite it,
Yeah.
I think that can only help to inspire everybody else
Yeah.
and keep them making it too. And the more passion we have in the world, it's always going to be the better, for the better, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm an optimist by nature, so ain't nothing going to defeat me from keeping making art, like from making art. So like I'm not stopping. I think that's just stupid. I wouldn't. Don't let the AI win. Keep making art. Keep doing your thing and getting better and growing and learning from other people and yourself and your experiences, and just build on what you are. Work on yourself and work on your art.
Yeah.
Eric, what keeps you creating?
I create because I, in my brain, feel like if I don't do it, nobody else is going to. That's what I tell myself. The art that I create, only I can create it. And it's no computer program, no other person. It's my voice, it's my passion, my personality. Everything that is unique about me pours out through that brush onto the canvas, onto that computer screen, whatever it might be. But I do it because I have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, it's really inspiring to me too, because everything I've seen in AI art so far has not been anywhere close to anything that I would have created anyway. And it can't, because there's infinite ideas that can be generated or created. And we can always make something new no matter what.
Yeah.
They can never tap into my brain and pull out the idea that I would have uniquely for me. You can't replicate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a comforting thought to know that, and a compelling case to keep creating.
Yeah. I see it like when I watch a performer, like a singer or an actor or somebody on stage, or even an athlete, like leaving everything on the field or leaving everything on the stage. If I watched a machine like replicate that, it would not mean the same thing to me, because I know a human isn't doing that. You know what I mean? And that's, I guess, like I feel like that can never be taken from me when I'm creating. Is that just leaving it all on the page? Um, and I'm addicted to that feeling. When I can shut the whole world away and just be there with my emotions and with what I'm putting out there. And I'm getting emotional talking about this, but like feeling somebody connect to that, like fuck, that's what I live for.
There's an anime called Blue Period. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's a really great show. But it's about some high school kid discovering that he loves art and wants to become an artist, even though he hasn't practiced it before. And in the first episode, he creates a piece that's like a reflection of Shibuya in the morning. And it's more abstract, but one of his friends understands it. And like as soon as he does, like he realizes the power that's in art, and he just breaks down
Oh,
crying, because like he's like, oh my God, like I had an idea, like I put my soul on this page. And for the first time I tried to be myself and not somebody else, and they got it. And like there's no replacing that feeling.
yeah.
I'm getting chills just thinking about that feeling too. Yeah. So everybody who's out there listening, chase that feeling. Do art for you and no one else, despite what is trying to take it from you, despite algorithms, AI art, NFTs, people who don't understand our craft. My advice is just to keep creating anyway, regardless. Don't let anything stop you from expressing yourself and being authentic to yourself. But we're going to keep working together, and we're going to keep forging those bonds. But stay strong, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening.